Okay guys, so I was doing a part one with all devices, right? And they're failing me. So I have one more device because I want to hear Elliot's perspective on living here in South Africa for a person who's well-traveled, well-versed, very intelligent, very interesting, who's had, I think you're living the lives of like 10 people in one. So it's really interesting to see where you've come from the farm, you lived in the city, you've traveled around the world, you meet interesting people, you're interesting yourself. And a lot of people don't live that. That's kind of like multifaceted reality. So what's your perspective on living here? Or living anywhere else? Or
in South Africa, one of the interesting things is you have, and I think also in other parts of the world, the rural landscape and the urban landscape. And I come from the rural landscape, so from a small town. And food-wise, delicious. Food-wise, a lot of our diet is quite carb heavy. So when I met her, and she told me that she doesn't eat any carbs, the first thing is like, oh, good God.
how depressing.
Exactly. What do you then eat? Because I think it would totally shock my system if I took out carbs, just because for the rest of my life it's what I've been eating. But I'm actually quite keen to try these.
Yes, we are going to make some more. So political and social economical understanding besides food, or does that play a role? Does food play a role in that reality? Does food cross that barrier?
So what's interesting, and in the US, if you eat McDonald's, you are likely, because you fall in the working class and poor,
this is so interesting,
categories, right? And if you're rich, you can afford organic food. So, people who can afford to buy things fresh and healthy. But in South Africa, if you live in the rural areas, you already grow your food. Well, at least historically we used to do that. We're kind of moving away from that into a more consumerism culture. But what's interesting to note is that in a rural landscape, if you can afford to buy McDonald's, you are seen as more affluent. And the people with the organic food think of themselves as poor. And you've got like this complete shift. And that should tell you a great deal about kind of how consumerism coming into South Africa has styled or branded itself as progression, as something advanced, when actually eating processed food is shit.
I say that all the shit, garbage, nastiness.
But they call our shit here the thing, and the thing that we do, which is organic food, is kind of seen as a poor people. Look, they grow their own food.
And who would that be? What would the poor people be? Who are they?
You are most likely to be black people. So
the indigenous to this area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, in South Africa, you always have kind of the dichotomy between black and white. But there's actually a lot of color in between, which often gets misplaced on the continuum. But if you're talking about the working class, you're mainly referring to an overwhelming black majority and coloreds as well.
So
in
who
the
would
States,
be colored?
What you guys call mixed race.
So I would be considered colored.
Yeah. So
this is what I've heard.
So she's my colored friend.
But to you guys, we just black, right? We the same. Yes. Doesn't work that way here.
Yeah. I think for us South Africans, and one of the things that I find quite interesting, particularly about having Stephanie here in the house, is that I've always had a very weird imaginary relationship with what the people who are called African Americans.
What's up, my brother? Sorry, I had to do a little
And you know,
stereotype.
it's always the case that I wonder, why are they called African Americans? Shouldn't they just be black?
This is such a good subject coming from somebody who's from Africa.
You know, like, what makes, or at least in kind of national discourse, what makes you African American and not black? I know in the hood you call yourself black, but within policy you're always defined as African Americans.
Well, today, when my mother grew up, we were black. No, we're niggers. But now, then we became black. But maybe that was the Black Panther movement. Black is beautiful, but now we're African American.
And you're just not American? Like, what do you have to do to just be American?
Right? Why is there a distinction?
Exactly.
But all there's distinctions here. There's Afrikaners, and then there's Africans. So if you're born here and you're an Afrikaner, you wouldn't say, I'm African. Is that right?
So, the word African has become quite interesting in the last, particularly in South Africa, in the last, say, 30 years or so. So if you trace our history before the fall of apartheid, there was a time when being African was a derogatory term. So no white body would call themselves African.
Because that would be putting themselves less than.
Less than. But what's interesting is that post-apartheid, you have white people that are now classified and call themselves Africans.
Oh, they do?
They do.
Because I think Edwin says I'm African.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm a South African.
Yeah.
And,
Americans,
you know,
though.
the Africanness.
Right.
The question for me has always been that when did being African shift from being a derogatory term to being an inclusive term? And who redefined it?
But you wouldn't call yourself African here. You might do it if you travel abroad.
Well, because I assume I'm with Africans, you know. You don't walk into your home. Well, I mean, you could, but if you're black, you don't walk around black people saying, "Hey, black people, I'm black," you know. yeah, we are black.
We're black.
You know, we just take it as an assertion of who we are, that we are, without having to assert ourselves like all the time. It's not a very particularly difficult thing to, you know, tell.
So you guys may notice I almost never talk about skin color when I do my videos, ever. So this would be the first you would hear me, but because I'm in South Africa and the history here is so near, that'd be very interesting to include it in the video. A more inside perspective, so go ahead, my bad.
No, that was
it. I just wanted to, like, you know, let people know why are we on the subject when I normally talk about food, right? So I just thought this is an interesting subject that would be good for people to hear about, because it's so interesting, which grounds me when I travel. So you were talking about the distinctions between how people title themselves and how that can stigmatize, or as you say, marginalize different people based on the way people want to, skin color.
It's funny when you do. Wait, yeah, you're quite lighter than me. You see?
Not by much.
You see? African American. African.
My mother's darker than you, tripping. He's actually not that dark, to be honest. No, you're not.
Yeah, no, I'm not, you know, the
You're not Nigerian
darkest or African, you know, you're gonna find.
No. You'd be on the lighter side.
Which it shouldn't even be about, you know, your shade of darkness. It's not like 50 Shades of blackness, you know. We are all black.
Yes.
So, if you look like me, you're probably are black.
Yeah, maybe.
I should hope.
Do you love your country? Do you love your origin?
I'm going to take this opportunity to echo John Lennon's message.
Yes.
And as much as I am grounded in the idea of being a South African, I do not think that our national boundaries that are quite artificial should be the limit. And so often I have a kind of a conflictual relationship with only having a historical background that's rooted in South Africa. So, and how that has made me the person I am, versus, I think, and as a traveler, something that I experience everywhere I go is that there's a great sense of being a citizen of the world when you encounter different people in different countries, in a way that when you're just within your own national borders, you often think of the others as being different. And there's a lot of people out there with a lot of heart who will go to extreme lengths to make you feel welcome, loved, cared for in their country, something that I think often doesn't, get publicized a lot. Largely because I think, these bloody capitalists divide and conquer. But, I mean, it's still, true that we are still, only rooted within specific locations. And that does tend to shape quite extensively who we are and, how we perceive the world and how we are in turn perceived. And I think as a Black South African, I hate even the fact that I have to say as a Black South African, as if I was ever anything else. But, but in the same token, that already is a step towards acknowledging that Africa has become more than black as well. I think just in as much as we want and are always fighting for our brothers within European borders to find foothold and be treated equally. I think Africa, it's equally important for us to accept, if not acknowledge, that there are more shades of Africanness.
Yeah.
That it's not just black, but black power.
Yeah, it's a metaphor, by the way, because nobody's black, so it's just a metaphor. Chill out.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're talking about blackness here as a social construct.
Yes.
But for me, I find that funny, black people after like centuries of being oppressed because of being black, suddenly, as a race, suddenly we have to discard the idea of race. And I understand the science behind it. I just find it interesting that for us here for 300 years, it was the word that you used to keep us down. Now you're telling us the word doesn't exist.
Should we leave it at that?
I think we leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. Okay, so
from food to politics.
From food to politics. I'm in South Africa. I'm not in LA anymore. So I think it's really important for me bringing Elliot into the video is to kind of let you guys understand that the reason why I feel I'm successful at things that I do is that I'm able to leave my comfortable environment, forget my reality, because this is not my reality as I stand right here, right now, and to open up somebody else's reality. In this culture, I would be considered colored, which puts me on a higher pedestal, if you may, rather than like where Elliot stands. And that bugs me because, a lot of you guys in the videos are like, what ethnicity are you constantly? And to me, I'm just like, we're all the same. So that there is any type of division in any type of aspect, I need to come here and see that. I do. I need to see it, experience it. Plus, I went to Soweto yesterday, and it's very interesting because like in 3 minutes you can see like the most poverty-stricken things you've ever seen to like kind of nice little cribs. It's very bizarre. And then if you drive like 15 minutes away, you're in the most snotty malls that look more mall than in the States. It's like, it looks like perfect land. So for me to travel, like you guys are like, why are you always traveling? This is the reason. So I see that I've got like 12 minutes left. If you guys want to learn more, just about my trips and how to change from the inside, and that if you want to change your body, you have to change your mind by becoming more grounded. Go to stephanieperson.com. Peace.